Hey guys, this is Zephyr here. I wanted to do a video about my RWBYbound mod. More specifically, how to make your own weapons in Starbound. Because it's something I started doing in December, I believe. Ever since Starbound came out, I was really interested in the modding aspect, and while I don't really have any experience in modding myself, I just sort of experimented and I looked at some tutorials and I managed to put some little bits and pieces together, and now I have a whole collection of weapons and armor in RWBYbound. So I am going to make a new weapon today right on video. I'm going to be doing, I was looking through what I could be doing, and I am going to do Taurus's Wilt and Blush. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is have a program up that can actually do this sort of stuff. Anything can do pixel art. I use Photoshop CS7 because I like Photoshop CS7. It's pretty good. But I'm going to do Taurus. First thing that I always do is I go to Monty Oom's Facebook page for references, because this is literally going to be the best place for all the references and stuff. So, I am going to do Wilt and Blush, which is this weapon. I need a good reference. That's what it looks like sheathed. I will probably do the sword portion first, I reckon. So I'm going to get that because that's, in my opinion, the best reference for me to use, because it's got both the gun part of it and the sword part. So I'm going to put this into Photoshop because I need the reference up. My screen's big enough to do it. And getting the reference is the easy part. Now we actually have to make the weapon. So I'm going to use one of my objects as a template, because you have to make the images quite small. So for this I will be using, I don't want to make the weapon too big. Now, I was looking at the trailer how this weapon worked, and I decided I was going to make it in 2 parts rather than any more than that, because I really don't need any more than that. So let's take a look. I am probably going to use the Croakia Moors, because that is a sword, and I can not go too big on that then. As you can see, it's a really small item. If I actually go onto image size, it will tell me that it's 10 pixels by 28 pixels, so it's a really small item. First thing I'm going to want to do, I'm going to want to save as, because I do not want to wreck my Croakia Moors. I'm going to go into RWBYbound, I'm going to go into Assets, I'm going to go to Items, I'm also going to go into Swords. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this Wilt and Blush. And I'm going to literally save this right into here as Wilt and Blush PNG. Now, it must be a PNG, any other file format, and it's going to wreck it in one way or another. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to rotate this canvas here. Best way to actually rotate this canvas is to image rotation clockwise. Perfect. Now, obviously, this sword, because it's a long sword, it's going to be slightly longer than this weapon, so I'm going to just pinch on the canvas size on the edge here and make it a bit bigger. And I'm going to borrow some of the colors from this weapon here to craft this weapon. Now, the handle is fairly thick, so just contemplating how I'm going to go about doing that. I'm going to start with this color here. I'm just going to pixel right over. I don't really feel the need to make layers on something like this, because it's just so, there's so little space you're working with that you can just go back over everything quite easily. And going to make the blade here. It's going to be quite long. I'll probably reach it to the end of the canvas. Hopefully it's not too big in the actual preview, but we'll see. So we've got that. I'm just going to add the blade edge here. Looks pretty cool. Just want to add a bit of... I don't want to saturate out the color too much, but I do want to mess with the gradient, maybe add a bit of... Maybe go a bit into pink there, just because I can sort of make that out there. Don't know if that's too pink. I might need to just fuzzy the edge down a bit so it doesn't look so bad. And then I'll probably just pale that off like so. I think that's about right. I'm gonna add a bit more of a gradient to that because I think it needs it, but that bit's good, and I'm just gonna work on this end of the blade now. Pixeling these weapons themselves actually doesn't take very long at all, and it's a lot of fun. So I think that should do. I don't know if that's too much on the actual gradient itself. I might just fill that in and then introduce one slightly darker color just there. Yeah, I think the purple works on there. Yeah, so I'm happy with the actual blade tip on that now. Might just add that to the top as well. Yeah, I'm happy with that now. Yeah, that's a lot better. So, what else can we do? Ah yeah, need that too. Yep, that's good. Okay, I'm actually finished with the blade part now. Next part I want to do is the handle. So I'm just going to add a tint up here. It's kind of a harsh pixel color though, so I'm just going to work with that for a minute and then just darken that up. Might need a bit more on that. I can use that for the lower gradient there, but I'm definitely going to have to make that a lot darker. I don't know if that's too dark now. I think that should be okay, I reckon. So we've got that. I might add the little highlight just at the base of the weapon there. I don't think I need it there, otherwise it's going to be too much. But I've got that. The handle is kind of short though. The only problem is when in Starbound you kind of have to take liberty with the weapon you have, as the fact that you can only make them so big, otherwise they're too big. I had to really cut down the Sun Wukong's weapon just because when I first previewed the weapon I had pixeled in game, it was massive. So you have to work with a really small area. I actually think this weapon might be too big in preview, but we'll see. So I probably won't make blush right away. Well, I don't know which half is called Wilt and which half is called blush, but I'm going to work with this weapon and I'm going to save this. I'm going to save it in its right folder, which is Wilt and blush. I'm going to save it right there. That's done. Next thing you want to do is you want to actually make it function in game. So you're going to have to add a function to make it work like a sword. So I'm actually going to borrow my RWBY's sword template here because using a template is kind of helpful. And feel free to use this template as well if it helps, but it's got all the information on there that you're going to want to see in game. So I'm just going to copy my RWBY's information into Wilt and blush. I'm also going to name that too, Wilt and blush dot sword. You're going to need this in Notepad++ or Notepad, but it's fairly easy to edit. I'm going to see if I can make this any bigger so you can see it. View, zoom. Right, okay. So the item name is obvious. We're going to call this Wilt and blush. I believe this is the name that the game feeds off of when you start the game up. So make sure that name is the same name as your folder and the same name as all your stuff in your folder, just so it works. level 8. I'm actually going to change that to 10 because no, I'll keep that at 8 for now because that's just sort of like the power of the weapon. I haven't really put too much thought into the power just yet. Rarity is going to be rare because I'm going to actually make a stronger version of this weapon. Description is the mini description you'll see in game. So just trying to think of something. Buy me some time. That's all I can think of. Now you'd say that's the costume. I'll call that. I'll just write Adam Taurus's sword. I don't know if my grammar is right on that, but we'll see. Wilt and blush. I'm going to put katana in there. And the short description is actually just the name of the weapon itself. The inspection kind is a sword, because it is a sword. The kind is a sword. Two-handed false, because we're going to put the his gun weapon with it, so you can use both at the same time. And then for the image, you want to put the name of the image file. I always put it as Wilt and Blush, so Wilt and Blush PNG. At the moment, I'm just borrowing the weapon sound effect for my current blades, but you can add your own into the sound effect file in the mod folder. So the fire sound is just a gamble shroud sound, which is a standard blade. Projectile type is actually how the blade swings. I'm probably going to make individual blade swings just to match the character's semblance, but at the moment it's borrowing Milo 3, which is a yellow slash effect. The rest of this stuff we're going to go into in a minute, like the coordinates, the speed, the power, because these things I can only really check when it's in game. So I'm actually going to keep that up. And now that I've got all this here, I just actually need to check one more thing. Yeah, it's not borrowing any, it doesn't need any icons, so I've actually made the Wilt and Blush now. I can go right out of here, go right into items, and the next thing I do now is I go on to player config. This is all the modded stuff I've made, and in here I'm just gonna take an entry from Crescent Rose 3, I'm gonna paste it there, I'm gonna make a new line, doesn't matter where it is, just as long as it's in there. And I'm going to name that Wilt and Blush. One thing I have to be careful of is if the it is funny on lowercase, so I'm just wondering if I have put that in the right casing. I have a lot of files up on here. You can see how much I've actually made. So we got Wilt and Blush right here. It's using a lowercase b, so I got to make sure to actually have that in my player config. So if I open up player config again, I'm going to make that lowercase because I think casing is quite important. It won't fix it for you. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is go into recipes, starter, and here's going to be the list of the crafting tables. Anvil, plane, and spinning wheel are the default Starbound crafting tables. Dust Workshop crafting table is actually my own, so I'm going to put it in here. And this is all the list of recipes and stuff that you can actually make on it. I've actually indexed all these with a little letter at the beginning, so it just shows you what position it displays on the crafting table. C is clothing, H is hair, W is weapons, so we're going to want to go on W. So I'm going to take Stormflower 2. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to rename it to W Wilt and Blush recipe. And I'm going to edit that. Because this is debug, I haven't set any crafting recipe stuff, but you would add it here instead of money. I'm just going to put in Wilt and Blush count 1. And then groups, mod, Dust Workshop crafting table. Mod is just so it appears on other people's mods if they have like things that read all the craftable things. So Yeah, that's done. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, this will actually show up in game. The only way we can do that is just launch it. Starbound is a pretty fun game on its own, but I really enjoy the modding more than the actual playing the game itself, which is kind of weird. But yeah, if I go on single player, I'm gonna load my character, which is Chun-Li here. Don't know why I called her Chun-Li. I think it's because when I first made her, she kind of looked like Chun-Li. Anyway, here's my mess of stuff. I'm gonna look on here. Wilt and Blush is on here. It is a katana. Now, the first problem we're gonna have before we actually use the weapon is it's gonna be in the wrong place. Like, you can see there that the weapon is totally in the wrong place. Completely, totally in the wrong place. So what we're gonna have to do, we can still keep the game on, but we're gonna wanna be able to do other things as well. So if we go out of here, I'll keep the game up because I can still keep it up while I'm doing this editing stuff, which is super useful. So I'm gonna go back into Wilt and Blush. I'm gonna look at all of these. So we've got arm angle, sword angle. I'm gonna change these to 0 just to see what it does. I'm gonna change that to 0, and I'm also gonna change that to 0 just to see what happens. So that's currently what it looks like, but if I press I and I make another one, it should come up different because I've updated it. See, now it's about right, but it's at the wrong height. So after some work, I managed to actually get the Wilt and Blush done on the animation. It took me about 10-20 minutes just to get the animation just right on it. I'm probably gonna have to change the animation because it doesn't really fit with the sweep, but I made sort of like a new sweep with this because I watched the Black trailer just to get an idea of how Adam's sword actually worked. And I wanted to do that really cool swing back motion where he pulls his sword back at the end of the swing, and I've just done that there, so that's really cool. I'm gonna actually test this on some enemies right here. I've got this little place I built here. It's a lot of rain, so hopefully that doesn't detriment on the audio too much. I've got this water testing animations and Yang's bottom animation that I'm not finished yet, but attacking these dudes, it's not doing a lot of damage because I'm on an X planet. But I can make a stronger version of this weapon as well. So I'm gonna kill this dude. And now that that's done, I'm going to beam back up. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to fix the power on it, and I'm also going to make another version. But that is basically how you make weapons. I've got all these here as well, I've got all this cool stuff. Stuff I haven't shown in any videos yet. I do have Ren's equipment and Nora's equipment coming along, so that's another thing. I have Ren's tunic there. Everything else I believe is already in the game. One other thing as well is I've also got Emerald's hair there as well, but it needs a lot of work, so that's not done yet. But yeah, that is how you make weapons. I made Adam's Wilt and Blush. I'm gonna make the gun part as well. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And yeah, that's how you make weapons in RWBYbound or whatever mod you want to make. So yeah. Thank you.